Hello, everyone. Welcome back to DevWorld. I'm thrilled to have you here for the second part of our Terraform series. In the previous episode, we covered the basics of Terraform, including how to install it on both Windows and Linux machines. If you missed that, don't worry, you can find the link in the description box below, so make sure to check it out if you haven't already. Today, we're going to talk about setting up Terraform to connect with the Azure cloud. So without any further delay, let's get started. Now, let's start by talking about the prerequisites. Azure account. First things first, you'll need an active Azure account. Don't have one yet? You can easily create a free account on the Azure website. Next one is Azure CLI. Make sure to install Azure CLI on your local machine. This is essential for communicating with Azure. Let me guide you through the process of installing Azure CLI. Start by visiting the official Microsoft website, where you can download Azure CLI for Windows. Once the download is complete, double-click the installer and follow the on-screen instructions to install it. After a successful installation, you can verify by opening the command prompt cmd or PowerShell and entering the following command. AZ version. If everything's been installed correctly, this command will display the installed Azure CLI version. You're all set to start managing your Azure resources using the command line. Lastly, Terraform. Terraform should be up and running on your machine. If you're not sure how to do it, check out my previous Terraform video for a step-by-step guide. Let's move on to setting up your Azure account for Terraform, allowing you to manage your Azure cloud seamlessly. First things first, you'll need to log into your Azure account using Azure CLI. First, open Git Bash on your computer. In the terminal, type AZ login and press enter. This command will redirect you to the Azure portal in your web browser, prompting you for authentication. In the Azure portal, you'll be asked to provide your Azure account username and password. Enter the required information to proceed. Make sure your credentials are correct. Once you've entered the correct username and password, you'll receive a message confirming your successful login. It will say something like, "You have logged into Microsoft Azure." Now, let's switch back to Git Bash. After a successful login, you can now see all the details of your Azure account information right in the command line. This information is displayed only after a successful login, so ensure that you've completed the authentication process as mentioned earlier. Among the details displayed, we are particularly interested in the subscription ID. This unique identifier is crucial because it specifies the Azure subscription where your resources will be created. It's important to choose the appropriate subscription to ensure your resources are billed correctly and managed within the right scope. And here's a bonus tip for you. If you haven't saved your Azure account details or if you need to access them later, don't worry, Azure provides a convenient command to retrieve this information. In Git Bash, simply type the following command. AZ account show. When you run this command, Azure provides a comprehensive overview, including vital information like your subscription ID, tenant ID, and more. If you don't specify a subscription, Terraform will create the resources in the default subscription. To avoid this, let's select the correct subscription using the Azure command line interface. In Git Bash, type the following command to set your desired subscription. AZ account set subscription equals subscription_ID. Replace subscription_ID with the actual subscription ID you want to use for your resources. The next step is to create the Terraform script for the Azure provider. So what is Terraform Provider? A provider is a plugin that Terraform uses to translate the API interactions with the service. In simpler terms, a provider in Terraform acts as an interface between Terraform and a specific service or technology. When you write Terraform configuration files, you specify which provider you want to use for each resource. For example, if you're managing resources in Microsoft Azure, you would use the Azure provider. If you're working with Amazon Web Services, you would use the AWS provider. To begin, head over to the official Terraform registry website. Once there, navigate to the Browse Providers section and select Azure. From here, click on Documentation. From Documentation search Provider, and choose Azure Provider, Authenticating via Azure CLI. This page provides essential setup information. What we're interested in here is the Azure Provider code. You'll find the provider block. Copy this provider block and paste it into your favorite text editor, like Notepad. Notice that we're using Azure Provider version 3.0.0, and the source is HashiCorp/Azure. This information is vital because it specifies the exact version of the provider we're utilizing. In this provider block, we've specified that we're using Azure as our provider. This connection is crucial for Terraform to manage Azure resources effectively. Now, you're all set to start defining your Azure infrastructure using Terraform. It's time to save it in a location where you organize your Terraform code. I recommend creating a dedicated directory for your Azure cloud resources. Within this directory, save the file with a .tf extension, which indicates it's a Terraform configuration file. You can choose any name that suits your provider. For example, I've chosen provider.tf for my setup. The next step in our Terraform setup is to initialize our project and ensure we have the necessary plugins installed. Open git bash and navigate to the directory where you've stored your Terraform code. Once you're in the right directory, type the following command, terraform init. This command is the key to kickstarting your Terraform project. It initializes Terraform and downloads the necessary Azure plugins. Keep an eye out for the message Terraform has been successfully initialized. This indicates that Terraform and the Azure plugin are now in sync and ready to go. After running Terraform init, take a look at your Terraform manifest directory. You might notice a new directory called .terraform. This directory is hidden and contains all the modules and plugins required by Terraform. It's like the engine room powering your Terraform project. The final verification step in Terraform is executing Terraform plan. Open your command line interface and type Terraform plan to initiate this process. During this step, Terraform meticulously evaluates your configuration files, precisely identifying the necessary actions required to align the real-world infrastructure with the desired state defined in your files. And there you have it. We have successfully initialized Terraform and downloaded the Azure plugin, setting the stage for managing your Azure resources. If you found this step helpful, don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe for more practical tech tutorials. Stay tuned for next video, where we'll delve deeper into creating and managing Azure resources with Terraform. Thanks for watching, and happy terraforming.